All right, ladies and gents, welcome back to another episode of Wellness in Depth. I am your host, Mark Komar, along with...
Oh, look at me all happy and ready to be talking this shit. Yeah. Kill Sherman. Jesus Christ.
That's what's up. You're happy to be here. That's good. So, today we are discussing...
managing your expectations in terms of your fitness, your physical fitness journey. You know, like, I'm in my 40s, and...
Say what?
Yeah, I can't believe it either.
Right.
But the thing about it is, and I have so many clients who are trying to figure out, they're trying to jump right back in. Sometimes they want to jump right back in where they were.
Jump back into their health.
Into their fitness into their fitness routine and exercise routine based on where they were in their 20s. Or in terms of my ladies out there before they were mothers.
Oh.
You like, take it easy. But
a lot has happened over the past few weeks. Right. Not years, weeks.
Weeks. You know, and so I think it's important that both the men and the women out there who are in your 40s or just on the other side of 35, really, no matter where you are, just on the other side of 35, that you give yourself some grace.
Yes.
And you not only manage your expectations, but reconsider how you measure progress.
And when you say give yourself some grace how?
So understanding that things have changed, you've changed mentally and really physically, you know, and when we say grace, take an honest inventory of where has your physical activity been?
Yeah.
The last year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, even if there is a major benefit if you've been physically active in your past, you know, and a lot of men and women have done things like, you know, for my ladies out there, you tend to discount your physical past, your physical fitness in your past, but whether it was dancing, yoga, Pilates, jogging, but you were doing something. And so you have muscle memory. So number one, in terms of grace, is understand that you're not as far gone as you think you may be.
Right.
And then another example is if you are a mom, understand that your body has changed dramatically now because you've grown a whole human inside of yourself. Right. And so your physiology is not the same as it was before you had a child. And the third thing I would say, and then I'll let you take over. The third thing I would say is understanding that, you know, sometimes ladies have a number in their head that they want to get back to. Like if you're 40 something and you're maybe 50 pounds away from where you were in your 20s, and you're trying to get back to that number that you were in your 20s, you have to also take in consideration what your activities were. Like, for instance, if you didn't engage in any physical exercise, any weight resistance training, and you're going to develop lean muscle mass, you're going to get firmer, you're going to get tighter and harder. And so if you weren't doing any of those things in your younger years, like you're trying to achieve a body type that doesn't necessarily correspond to the number you have in your head. Does that make sense? I hope that made sense to folks. So what I'm saying is, once you begin to do squats and lunges and do curls and push-ups and, you know, get in the gym and get consistent with your cardio along with your weight routine, and you weren't doing that before, your body's going to be different. You're going to have new bone density, lean muscle mass, and so being too caught up on a number on the scale can be frustrating.
Yeah, and I think the reason why we all do it is because the number is the most quantifiable approach to measure the change that we think we want to see.
It's easily quantifiable. That's the thing. I think it's the ease of
Yeah.
Because you can just step on the scale.
Right, exactly. Thank you. It's the easiest quantifiable measure when the reality, like he said, give yourself grace. When he started by saying give yourself grace, is because it is fluid. It's so much that has happened to you over the years. There's so much that you've been through, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. Your growth you still have had growth, and you've had a lot of, trauma, if you will. And I don't mean trauma from the standpoint it's all been bad, but your body, your sympathetic nervous system, your parasympathetic nervous system has taken a lot on it over the years. And so you have to give yourself, like you said, the grace, not only physically, but you also have to give yourself the grace mentally and emotionally to know that it's okay to start where you are and then progress to a level. And it's okay to say a level that you're not necessarily aware of yet of what that level is. But as long as you're starting, That's the biggest thing, and that's the qualifier and quantifier that I like to use, because so many people don't start.
That's the hardest thing. It's the inertia. It is getting an object in motion, and that is typically so difficult for so many people. Like thinking about being where you are, thinking about where you want to go seems so far apart. It can feel overwhelming, and you feel defeated before you even get started.
Yep.
And so the other thing I mentioned about measuring progress is people they measure progress in the wrong ways. What I mean is, hopping on the scale after 4 to 6 weeks of exercise is not a good idea. And because there are other positive things that your body's undergoing that you will dismiss because you're not getting the feedback from the scale. Like the scale isn't going to tell you that your pants fit better. The scale is not going to tell you that you have lowered your cholesterol, you've lowered your blood pressure, you're sleeping better, you have more energy.
Which we've talked about this in another episode already, about the measures that you actually want to look towards, like he said, that are letting you know you're improving. But right now, we just want to make sure you understand, give yourself the grace to know that what you think you were back, 15 years ago or 10 years ago, pre-kids or pre-divorce or multiple job changes, you know what I'm saying? Or pre-death in the family, you know what I'm saying? All these factors, you were a different person then.
Right.
So you have to give yourself the grace now to see how you can evolve from where you are now, but do it with the proper sequential steps and allow yourself.
Key word there, evolve.
Right.
Like trying to go back to where you were isn't really feasible, and it's not the best course of action.
No. The where you were is it's really only a good tool to help let you know that you can achieve things, because you knew you did do this, okay? But it's like a great athlete. You look at like the Tom Brady's and the Michael Jordans, they didn't rest their laurels on the fact that the first championship they won, they want to do that again. It's like, well, how good could I get, and how good can I be for the next challenge that's coming my way?
They set new challenges for themselves, new goals for themselves.
But they can say when times get hard, I was a champion, so I know how to be a champion, and that's what we're reflecting on. But it's not saying I want to be that champion again.
Right.
And I think so often for the layman person, we say, I want to be back like I was when I was 21. And that's not it. Just know, because before you got 21, you were 16 and you were like, I can't wait to be 21. And then the 21 hit and you were whatever you were. You were miraculous, you were a college athlete or whatever, or you just felt like you were at your apex at that time. But all that memory is there for is to say, hey, you can be successful at this juncture, but you got to do it the right way for you now, and don't try to, like you said, pick up and be what you once were.
You leverage your past.
Yeah.
You leverage your past, so you learn from it. And so that's one thing I'm big with my clients on, is finding past success that they can use to prove to themselves that they're successful. It's like, you've done things, like if you're a parent, like if you're a mother, you gave birth. That's a major thing. But I mean, people do that. People have children, but they discount it because it happens so often. But that's a powerful thing. Or you held a job, or
while having life, making life, rather, while making life, bringing life into this world. Right? You kept a relationship going. You kept, saving and investing. You
bought a house. You bought your first house,
right?
Or you started your business.
So many things, and you didn't do all those things, miraculously, if you will, or at a huge high level, but you did it well for you. And just know you can do the same thing when it comes down to your health and wellness, and don't try to overdo it, but give yourself the grace necessary. And we do mean it's a fine line. I'm going to say this, it is a fine line between giving yourself grace and then giving yourself an out.
Yeah, that's a very good
and
point.
Be like, I worked out today and yesterday.
I'm going to grace myself with some cookies, and some fast food and some alcohol. I'm going to turn all the way up.
Turn all the way up. Yeah,
that's true. That's very true.
Everything that we discuss and everything in life is a fine line. Let me just say that too, people, because, we give these grandiose thoughts and these grandiose statements and be like, well, he said give myself grace.
Y'all cherry picking.
Right.
Don't start.
Be like, tonight I'm having 2 bottles of wine. Wait, what?
Right. That is not
what we
the
say.
message that we were trying to convey.
Right. So please keep it. Toe that line. Okay. But
one thing is helpful is if you journal. Yeah. If you journal or keep some kind of log, some kind of food log, particularly if you're just starting, because if you're just starting, giving yourself grace too quickly can lead to a downward spiral, because then you can find yourself off task. So like you said, it is a fine line. So that's why I'm telling you all, or encouraging you all, to consider journaling or food, or keeping record of your workouts, because you don't want to just let yourself off the hook.
Right.
But like if, for instance, you get some news, you get some bad news,
It's going to happen.
and you may not feel like, you may not be there mentally to take action to say in your workout, or you may not, feel like cooking the healthy meal or consuming the healthy meal, and you have that one thing where you skip a workout or you indulge in that questionable food choice. You don't let that become your next 7 days, which then turns into the next month. That's what we're saying. So you want to distinguish between that.
And the science and the chemical reaction in the body, I'm going to say this, if you can, and just so you know, behavioral tools are always your best bet. So when that bad thing happens, it's better for you to go for the healthier food or the healthier approach, because you're starting a chemical chain reaction in the body that will either help you or will hinder you. So
it's a pattern interruption. You can use it as a pattern interruption.
Exactly. So if you're going to go for the pizza or the carb load because you want that comfort food where you're going to spike your insulin, you're going to spike your sugar,
you're going to feel sluggish.
You're going to feel sluggish.
There's a possibility of that. And the thing is still going to be there.
And you're going to spike your dopamine, which that is just a dopamine spike. Whereas if you have, say, salmon, or you have some kind of fish or something that's a little bit more B12 rich, right? Then you'll be calming your nervous system, which is really what you want to do in the first place, because you don't want to keep it being overly excited. So you'll start calming your nervous system. So please understand, yes, it's easier to go for the feel good or the things that we don't, that
feel good in the moment.
It feel good exactly.
Because then you eat the salmon like you're talking about and feel good later. You won't wake up and feel like, oh God.
But actually, and I would say this because you're right. But if you did choose the salmon, the person that is choosing the salmon in that moment of emotional crises, and we're saying again because we know salmon is a little bit healthier than having something like say
a double cheese pizza,
exactly,
with extra toppings,
right, or a double cheeseburger or something like that, right? Again, the body chemically responds differently and better with the micronutrients of B12 being increased as opposed to the insulin being increased, right? And then psychologically, if you're eating a salmon, you feel better about yourself for having taken the right approach at that time as opposed to taking the wrong approach, which is what most of us do. We take that wrong approach, then you get that emotional beat up. I just
downward spiral,
exactly.
That emotional negative feedback loop,
exactly,
which is not helpful.
So this is why when you look at someone like me and you say, well, when you broke up with your lady and you didn't have the alcohol, but you went to the gym immediately, and then you kept that same pattern for 4 or 5, 6 months afterwards. It's not.
That's not necessarily months. The next couple of days that helped you build into those months.
Exactly. Thank you. But that's what it was. Is because I initially, when I was at my emotional lowest, I didn't take the things that would just spike the dopamine or make me feel good in that moment. Like you said, I still have the situations there to deal with, but I also chemically helped support myself so I could have the day after, the third day after, the week after, the month after,
and help build the habit.
Exactly.
And continue the healthy habit. So that's the
Exactly.
thing. So when we talk about grace, we're talking about measuring progress. We're talking about just navigation. We're talking about better navigation.
I like that. Yep, that's exactly what we're talking about. So it can be done. Don't look at the daunting task of the big picture. Just take it one step, one workout, one meal, one glass of water at a time. If you do it that way, then you can approach it, and it's easy to give yourself the grace and navigate the process better. But if you look at the overall daunting task, I need to drop these 30 pounds,
and then you look and you're then comparing that with your past.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the other thing we're trying to convey here is where you are in your life in the now. And leveraging your past as a stepping stone, to learn from in order to improve going forward.
Right. So you got this out there, guys. I mean, is there anything you want to wrap it up with?
So patience, but steady progress. They're making that, having that combination of, like we said, grace, but making sure that you're not letting yourself off the hook and you're taking steady progress. So you don't have to get it all in. You don't have to go 5 days a week. You don't have to go 7 days a week. Particularly if you haven't been working out consistently for a while. Just making time for once or twice a week and building on that is just a much more sustainable way where because I understand the frustration of wanting to transform yourself because and wanting to get back to your quote unquote old you, but at the same time being realistic in that approach and then setting yourself up for success. So therefore you can build on that and continue and develop the consistency that you need to get to where you want to go.
And I'm going to say this, because I hear he's absolutely correct. That's a great way to approach it. But I'm also going to say, set yourself up for success, because the reality is you do want the consistency of the daily approach to it. So even if you did say you're going to go 5 or 6 days, if you say you're going to go 5 or 6 days, go 5 or 6 days. Even on certain days out of those 5 or 6, the reality is you're not going to have intense days of exercise, right? But if you still are there, sometimes just putting yourself in the presence of, the gym, getting up out of bed, putting on your shoes, going to the gym. You might just halfway fall asleep while you're on the treadmill, on your on your third day, you know what I'm saying? But the fact that you're there, you
show up.
You show up, right? Exactly.
Show
Eventually, you'll get to, and that's the reality of it, because look, I've been training for all my freaking life, and certain workouts, certain days, I'm gonna be real with you. It's not like, if I did 125-pound dumbbell bench press, the day before, today I'm about to do legs, I may not go and do 315 on a squat, you know what I'm saying? I might just do 135, you know what I'm saying? And just rep that out, but go full range of motion. And some days I might just come in and just, myofascial release.
Stretch.
Exactly. You know what I'm saying? So these type of things, as long as I'm putting my body in the activity and emotion of
and showing up,
then I'm showing up for myself. And again, my cortisol level is lower. You know what I'm saying? Like the parasympathetic nervous system starts to decompress a little bit more. So therefore, I'm training myself to be healthy when I need it the most. Okay, because the reality is you're never always going to show up. Even though you meditate, you still gonna maybe pop off on somebody sometimes. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You go to your religious, whatever it is. You still gonna possibly have a moment of thoughts that you shouldn't have. You know what I'm saying? But if
savage,
right? But if you show up more often than not, trying to be the religious person or the meditative person, then you have a higher propensity when you need to show up the right way. You're going to do it. And so I would say yes, if you only can do 1 or 2 days, cool. But if you can do the 5 or 6, do that and just show up. All right. So before we have too long of a break, we appreciate you guys. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark.
McHugh.
And we'll see you guys again shortly.